friends. Welcome back. I'm Mira. Welcome to Still Here, Still Trying with your host, Mike Baker. You clicked the Christmas episode, so you signed up for stories, feelings, and holiday chaos in one place. Solid life choice. Last year, Mike released Starlight and Silent Nights. Idaho snow, soft lights, quiet December nights. This year, he went back to that winter world because the stories would not quit. He is still learning guitar, fingers fumbling through basic chords while his brain is already arranging full choirs. Strong confidence for a man who lives in GCD land. So he opens Suno and his AI tools and builds the world his hands cannot play yet. People love to trash AI-generated music. He is over here using it like a megaphone for the stories in his chest. The software gets loud. The feelings stay his. These albums grew out of real moments. Late nights when the house finally went quiet. Missing his mom in the kitchen while cookies, fudge, caramels, and enchiladas lived on in his memory. Standing in the cold at the North Idaho parade with Jake while the whole town sang Silent Night and the lights flipped on over the lake. That is the Christmas you are stepping into. Less perfect postcard, more real people in real winter trying their best. A storyteller using songs, AI, and whatever tools he has to make sense of it all. In this episode, Mike will walk you through those stories and the songs they turned into, all the way to Joy Looks Good on You. So keep driving, keep doing the dishes, keep wrapping presents on the floor. I am glad you are here. Your host, Mike Baker, the storyteller, is ready. Let's get started. Take it away, Mike. Try not to mess this one up.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to Still Here, Still Trying. I'm your host, Mike Baker. And look, hey, thanks for hanging out with me. I'm so excited that you're here. I know I say that every week, but I mean it every week. Thank you for being here. You heard from Mira already, so you know that where we're headed today, we're going to kind of go into holiday mode. We're going to talk about feelings and music and all the fun stuff. So last year, I put out my first Christmas album, and that statement just always rocks me every time. Like, this guy has music on Spotify? It's so crazy. That album was called Starlight and Silent Nights, and those songs came from quiet Idaho winters. They talk about long drives in the snow, late nights by the tree when the house finally calmed down. It was kind of my way of saying, this is what December feels like where I live with my family in this life. This year, I kept going and ended up with 3 more holiday projects. Still snowing somewhere, that Christmas feeling again, and lights in the window. So 3 new albums for you to check out. I started them earlier in the year. I built them out. I think I started on them in the summertime. Just wanted to get ready and do something special for this season. But the songs, as I was writing them, they kind of came straight out of the year that I was living. They kind of evolved out of long days at work. They just community projects, family stuff, a little bit of grief, a lot of small, kind of holy feeling moments that snuck up on me when I actually slowed down enough to notice. So today, I want to walk you through that world just a little bit. We're going to sit with the kid version of you writing letters to the North Pole. Wasn't that so fun? We're going to talk about late night snow when the town finally goes quiet. We're going to talk about rooms that slow your heartbeat down. And my favorite story, we're going to talk about our Christmas parade here in Coeur d'Alene and what it did to me that first year with Jake. We're going to talk about old houses, good childhood memories, and how families change as we grow. And that doorway moment where someone walks in laughing and you realize that joy found them again. We're going to talk about songs like Letter to the North Pole, Snow Falls Quiet, When the Fireplace Glows, Home for the Christmas Parade, Back Home for Christmas, Smelled Like Home, And we're going to close with a song called Joy Looks Good on You. If your holidays are messy, guess what? You belong here. If your holidays feel solid this year, you belong here too. So, quick housekeeping before we dive in. You know, I was going to talk about this. If this show matters to you, please, pretty please, por favor, hit follow or subscribe, hit like, hit one of those buttons on your screen right now. Go back, leave a rating or a review if you have a minute. Share this episode with someone who could use a little company while they wrap gifts, do dishes, or drive in the dark. We're almost done with 2026 or 2025, I mean. And we want to just jump into 2026, just screaming at the algorithm saying, hey, guess what? There's something really cool here with this Still Here, Still Trying podcast. So check it out. So I need your help. And all it takes is for you to click one of those buttons, hit that share button, write a little comment. You can do it. I know you can. I believe in you. All right. Housekeeping done. All of the Christmas records that I built, they're out on the streaming services now. So if one of the songs in this episode that we talk about hits you, you can go live with it later. But also, go check them out. They're on YouTube. Just hit Mike Baker Music. You're going to find it. It's really cool. I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, whatever. We're all out there. And if there's a service you can't find me on, probably time to find a better service. Just kidding. Anyway, go check them out. And while you're there, like them, follow me, download the songs. It all helps. Anyway, all right. You take a breath. I'm going to take a breath. Get that coffee, grab that peach monster. There's a really cool new blue flavored monster out there. Maybe you'll like that. Grab some tea, or start your drive, or just sit down and rest for a few minutes. But let's start where a lot of this music started for me. We're going to start with the song Joy Looks Good on You and why Christmas songs get inside us the way that they do. I'm going to talk a little bit about it now, and then I'm going to talk a lot more in depth on it at the very end of the episode. All right. Well, like I said in the introduction, last year I put out my first Christmas album, and that was wild. It was called Starlight and Silent Nights. And I honestly didn't know if anyone would care when I put it out there. I wrote it out of the winters we have here in Idaho, the way that the town feels after a storm, the sound of tires packed on snow, the quiet you only get late at night when the house is finally still, and the only light in the room is the tree and whatever is playing on the stereo. That album was my way of saying, this is what December feels like where I live with my family in this part of my life. It was a simple and pretty stripped down album. There's country ballads and folk, and there's stories about cabin lights and small moments by a fire. It was definitely not a big, shiny Christmas spectacle, but it was more like a journal that happened to rhyme. And it was so fun because a few of you let that album into your own living rooms. You told me how you drove with it on, you cooked with it on. You actually messaged me crying about a lyric in one of the songs. You talked about how you were crying in the car or finally feeling calm for just a second while it played in the background. And that meant more to me than you know. That's why I create this stuff. So fast forward to late summer into this fall, but I started getting messages again and I loved it. It was so much fun. Are you going to do another Christmas album? That one was from Joe down in Eastern Idaho. Is it going to feel like last year? Another person wrote, okay, but how sad is this one going to be? Because I'm hanging on by a thread. It's a fair question, but the truth is, I think this year handed out a different kind of weight to all of us. Same Idaho snow, same lights in the windows, but I think there's a different heart underneath it. And if I was going to make more Christmas music, it had to come from the year that I actually lived, not some polished version of December. Now, there's some fun songs on each album because you got to have fun at Christmas, but I tried to tell a lot of stories inside the albums. And that is how I ended up with the three projects instead of just one. Well, Still Snowing Somewhere came first. And that one sits in the real winter that most people walk through: the early alarm clock, the late shift, the text that you stare at and don't answer, the empty chair at the table that no one wants to talk about, but everyone feels. Those songs poured out of the quiet parts of the year where everything looked fine from the outside and very complicated inside. Then that quiet Christmas feeling again showed up. That album really leans into the parts of a season that still feel like home: a crowded house, someone laughing too loud in the kitchen, the comfort of a song that you grew up with, but reshaped just enough to feel like it belongs with your life now. That album remembers that joy and humor still exist even when you're tired. Lights in the Window came last. I wrote it kind of at the edges of the day, late at night when the house was dark, and even some early mornings before the world woke up. Those two times seem to blend in my life very frequently. The songs on that album they were kind of built for the small rooms that you walk into just for a few minutes. Kind of hits on family and faith and loss and memory. And there's even a couple of hard truths that I think I had been avoiding. And there are a few moments of peace that I just didn't see coming when I was working on the album. And that record closes the whole arc. It sounds like a person who has been paying attention all year and is just trying to end with a little more honesty than they started with. So I hope you feel that. But somewhere in the middle of all of that, there's probably one of my favorite songs in all of the projects. It's called Joy Looks Good on You. We're going to talk about it later in the episode, but I love it so much I'm going to highlight it here too. But when I think about that song, I do not picture a big stage or a holiday party. I picture a regular doorway at the end of a long year. The door opens, cold air follows someone in, their cheeks are red, and they're just laughing at something that they wrote or a joke that they think is funny. You've seen somebody like that where you can tell they're laughing, but you don't really know why. You look up, and for the first time in a while, you see a version of them that just feels lighter. It's not fixed, it's not brand new, it's just softer around the edges. And that's where the first verse came from. You walked in with snow on your coat, laughing hard at something you wrote. The kind of grin that fills a room. Yeah, joy looks good on you. To me, that is what Christmas songs do at their best. They kind of wander into these everyday scenes and quietly turn them into a memory. Years later, you forget half of the details of that particular month, but you remember how that room felt when that one song was playing. Last year with Starlight and Silent Nights, I was learning how to do that on a holiday album. I was trying to catch the glow off the snowbanks and the warmth of a small house full of people you love. And this year with these three albums, I wanted to zoom in even closer. The same winter, just more layers. We live these Decembers in slices. A long day at work that leaves you drained, a short laugh in the kitchen that fills your tank back up more than you even expected, the drive home in the dark where the right song makes you feel less alone, or even the quiet 10 minutes on the couch when the house is finally still and you can hear yourself think again. These projects grew straight out of that rhythm, and Joy Looks Good on You is one of those little checkpoints in that story. It's the moment when someone realizes I'm not as weighed down as I was. Something in me shifted this year. And that is what the bridge is saying. Some years break you down a bit. This one gave a little lift. I see it now, the change in you, a softer heart, a clearer view. If you have lived enough winters, you know those lines already. There are years where you crawl into December on fumes, and music feels like something other people get to enjoy. But you still show up, you still wrap gifts or work your shifts or do the traditions because that's just what you do. But your heart is somewhere else. And then there are years like the one this song is trying to hold. The circumstances are not perfect. You still have stress, you still have grief, yet somehow, without a big moment or a grand fix, something in you feels more open. You're a little kinder to yourself. You laugh a little faster. People around you actually notice before you do. And that is the joy that this song is naming. Not loud, glittery joy, just that quiet, lived in joy. The kind that has seen a whole lot of things and still showed up anyway. So as you listen to this episode, and later when you go to the streaming service to listen to the album, I want you to think less about whether you like Christmas music and more about the rooms and the people that show up in your mind when these songs play. Maybe maybe you remember a snowy Idaho night or a Utah night or a winter night. Maybe you remember a face across the table. Maybe you remember the first year that you felt like yourself again after a long stretch of barely hanging on. That is why these songs exist, to sit with you in those moments, to be part of the soundtrack while you figure out what this December means for you. I started with joy on purpose. Next, I want to back up and talk about belief. I want to talk about that kid version of you sitting at a table with lined paper, writing big messy hope into a letter that's addressed to the North Pole. You know what letter I'm talking about. And that's where the letter to the North Pole came from. And that's where we're headed next. All right. Well, at the end of that last part, we landed on this idea of joy showing back up at the door. Same winter, same house, just something softer in the room. I want to rewind now. I want to go back before the doorway, before the adult version of you that has seen way too much. Back to that kid at the table. And that is where the song Letter to the North Pole came from. When I was creating it, I kept seeing this little scene in my head. It was that little round table in Salt Lake in my home. It was Grandpa Bill's table. There's cheap wrapping paper in the corner. There's a cup of hot chocolate that's mostly sugar. But there's lined paper in front of you and there's crayons everywhere. And someone in your life tells you, hey, write your letter to Santa. Those were so much fun. Now, look, as a kid, you don't understand supply chain or time or even grief yet. You just know that there is this tradition where you get to ask for whatever you want, and someone somewhere is going to read it. The song starts with that. I used to write like he was real, and maybe that was the point. And that line sat with me for a long time. When you're a kid, you think you're writing to a guy in a red suit. You think you're talking about toys. But if you really look back with adult eyes, you realize most of what you wanted had nothing to do with stuff. What you really wanted was the house to feel calm for once. You wanted your parents to smile at each other more. You wanted people to stay. Now, you probably didn't write that part down. Your hand asked for one thing, but your heart was asking for something much bigger. In my own head, that kitchen scene is pretty specific. Lined paper, my hand gripping a crayon way too tight, and I'd break them all the time. You probably did too. The snow is louder than usual outside. Everything feels a little magical, a little uncertain, and you're sitting there trying to spell your way into safety. And that is what the early verses in the song is trying to hold. Lined paper on the table, crayon in my hand, didn't ask for much. Just make it feel like we're okay again. And I love that line. Make it feel like we're okay again. That is not a kid asking for a Nintendo. That is a nervous system asking for peace. Just imagine that. You grow up and the letters stop, at least in that form. No more crayons, no more envelopes by the fire. Life just gets busy. December becomes logistics and deadlines, and the magic parts of Christmas becomes something that you manage for other people. The need underneath it, though, never really goes anywhere. That is why I brought the grown up version of the letter into the song. It goes, last year, I wrote one on my phone, typed it out while driving home. Didn't sign it with Love Mike, just said, if you're still out there, I'm still trying. And I love that version of the letter too. There's no chimney, there's no stamp. It's just a person stuck in traffic, thumb typing honesty into a notes app because they just have to put it somewhere. And that is kind of what these three albums are all about. These are long form letters. Still Snowing Somewhere is a letter from the part of you that is tired but still paying attention. It's the part that notices how quiet it is when you walk to your car at night. The part that watches snow fall in a parking lot and just starts asking big questions again, even though you said you were done with that. Lights in the window feels like a letter you write when the house is finally still, when the year sits right in your chest and refuses to move until you deal with it. There are songs on that album that came from those moments. Soft Room, Dark Outside, and me basically talking to whoever or whatever is listening. Letter to the North Pole lives right between those two spaces, kid and adult, faith and doubt, sitting at the same table. There's no big resolution in that song. There's no scene where Santa shows up in 4K and everything makes sense. What you get instead is something I think that is just more honest. It's a person who keeps writing. Not because they are sure who is on the other end, but because something in them still needs the act itself. Now, you can call that prayer. You can call it journaling. You can call it texting a friend that you trust and hitting send even when you are shaky. I think it's all the same movement. Here's one of my favorite pieces of that chorus. Letters to the North Pole, folded tight, written slow. Not for toys, not for gold, just someone to say, you're not alone. And that feels like the center of the whole thing. If you strip the mythology away, what are those letters actually about? You want to matter to someone. You want your thoughts to be heard. You want the weight that you're carrying to feel held, even a little. And I think a lot of us still write letters like that. We just don't call them that anymore. We send a late night text that we hope gets answered. We leave a voicemail and hate how our voice shook. We post something honest and then stare at our phones, almost regretting it and needing it at the same time. Some of you listening to this are in that exact place right now. You actually feel a little silly for wanting December to mean anything, and you feel a little lost about what you even believe, and not just about Santa. You're not sure who is on the other side of your words, even if there's nobody there. And if that is you, look, I want you to hear this. There is nothing childish about wanting to feel heard. There's nothing weak about putting your hope down in writing just one more time. Look, the form changes, but the need stays pretty constant. And that is why the song doesn't end with a big answer. It just ends with this simple picture of someone still leaving a letter by a fire. They are older now, smarter in some ways, but they're still willing to give their hope a place to land. I wrote that because I needed it, but I think some of you do too. Look, you don't have to believe in a North Pole for this to matter. You can believe in the act of telling the truth. You can believe in the way that your chest loosens a little when you stop carrying everything in silence. And you can believe in sending something honest out into the world and trusting that somewhere, someone will recognize themselves in it and feel less alone. And guess what? That's the whole reason I do this. That's the reason for the podcast, for the music, for the art, for the book. I want someone to feel less alone any way that I can. And that is what I hope that this song does. That's what I hope these albums do. That is what I hope this episode does. So, in a minute, I want to zoom back out to the winter around those letters, out to the porch, the street lights, the sleepless nights where the snow is doing its thing, and the whole world finally goes quiet for just a second. And that is the world of Snow Falls Quiet and When the Fireplace Glows. And we're going to step into that next. Okay. Well, I want to walk outside for a minute now. No letters, no big speeches, just you, winter, and your own head. One of the anchors for this whole batch of songs is the opening line from Snow Falls Quiet. Snow started falling round 10, and the world finally shut up. And that feels like a whole mood by itself, doesn't it? Most days feel pretty loud to me. Work, messages, decisions, people who need something right now. Even when the room is quiet, your brain is not. The scroll never stops. The to do list, it just keeps talking. And then guess what? A storm moves in at night, and suddenly everything around you just softens. You open the door, and it's a different world. The street noise is gone. The usual hum is gone. Cars move slower. You can hear your own footsteps and that little crunch of snow under your boots. It's the same town, it's just different volume. And that is the feeling that I wanted to live in for that song. I picture stepping out onto the porch in snow boots, hands in your pockets, breath hanging in the air. The decorations are still up, the lights are still doing their thing. For once, though, nothing is demanding your attention. And you just stand there and notice. There's a line in that song that hits me every time. Houses all lit, they're holding their breath. People inside them just trying their best. From the street, the houses look perfect. Warm windows, pretty lights, little scenes that could sit on a postcard. But you know what's really happening in there, though, right? Someone is stressed about money. Someone is missing a person who used to sit at that table. Someone is scraping a pan in the sink a little too hard because of an argument from an hour ago. Someone is laughing so hard that the neighbors hear it. It's the same street, but it's every kind of story. When I created that line, I see a block full of people doing exactly what you were doing, trying, showing up, just carrying what they can, dropping what they have to, and putting one more string of lights on a half broken bush and just hoping that it sparks a little joy for somebody. There's another part of the song that makes me smile because it feels so human and so simple. It says, I used to think I'd get somewhere. Now, I think I already did. Not in miles or in money, but in the way my jacket fits. And I love that shift. When you're young, you chase some big, foggy idea of arriving. It's some point on the map where everything makes sense and you finally feel like a real adult. At some point, though, if you're paying attention, your definition of somewhere totally changes. You look around and realize your life is not a dress rehearsal. This is it. This porch, this moment, this breath in your chest, this jacket that has seen a lot of winters with you and somehow just fits better now. You're not where you imagined you would be. You are still here anyway, and that is what counts. The chorus of the song keeps circling back to how snow changes the way that the world feels without fixing anything. Snow falls quiet like a song without a sound, makes the world look softer when there's no one else around. Later, it opens into this: snow falls quiet like forgiveness in the air, takes the sharp edge off December, and leaves room for what was there. That line about forgiveness in the air is the one that stops me. You're still the same person. Your year is still your year. The hard parts have not vanished, but for just a moment, the edges are smoother. The noise drops, and you get a tiny bit of room inside your own chest again. It's just enough space to feel something besides stress. You do not solve your life out there. You simply just remember that it's worth living. From that porch, I wanted to bring you back inside. And that is where the song When the Fireplace Glows lives. That song starts out with another small, very specific moment. Snow keeps falling on the old back fence. Night folds in. The world makes sense. You pour the tea. I lock the door. The quiet feels like something more. Nothing dramatic, no big speech. Just two people closing the door on a world that has felt a little too loud and a little too sharp for a little too long. Outside, the storm keeps doing what it's doing. But inside, something shifts. There's a line about the house that still hits me. The house feels small but warm enough for every truth we never name out loud. That line is grown up December all in one sentence. You're not sitting down to unpack your entire history. You're not suddenly healed. You're not forcing some big state of the relationship conversation because the calendar says the year is ending. You're just in a room with someone who knows what you've been through, even if you don't even say it plainly. The house is small, the warmth is enough. You feel like you could tell the truth here if you had to. The chorus is the heartbeat of that song. When the fireplace glows, the room slows down, all the noise outside fades out. We sit close, we let it show. This feels right when the fireplace glows. And I just love how simple that is. The light changes, the room slows, your nervous system finally gets the memo that you are safe, at least for this moment. You sit close, you stop hiding your face, you let your eyes stay soft, and you let someone see you without the mask that you wore the entire day. For me, that has been my living room more times than I can count. Long day at work, tough leadership decisions, creative stuff, family worries. Some nights I just come home buzzing and it takes a while to land. And then the lights drop and something warm, that fireplace, starts up in the corner of the room. The sound in my chest changes. I stop rehearsing conversations in my head and I just start breathing again. I may even fall asleep and start snoring, and Sammy throws a pillow at me. The bridge of the song pulls the thread through all of this. If hope survives the darkest nights, it lives in simple, quiet light, a softer breath, a steady flame, a moment calling us by name. Hope sounds big in most conversation. It gets turned into slogans. Here, it is small and specific. It's a breath that does not feel like a gasp. It's a flame that does not flicker out as soon as the door cracks open. It's a moment where you feel chosen not for your output, but because you are you. If I zoom out and look at Snow Falls Quiet and When the Fireplace Glows Together, I see a rhythm that I keep coming back to in my own life. You step outside, the snow softens the corners of the world and reminds you that everyone around you is carrying something unseen. And you let that awareness soften you instead of hardening you. And then you step back in. The room by the fire reminds you that you are more than the weight you've been hauling. You get a few minutes where your shoulders drop and your heartbeat slows. The porch resets your view, and then the fire reminds you who you are doing this with. Those two songs sit close to home. One is on the porch listening to the silence, and the other is you in the living room letting someone else stay near you while you ride out just another winter night. They're ordinary places, but they end up feeling holy in a way that you do not always notice until later. And there's one more setting that I keep returning to when I think about Christmas and music. It's definitely not the quiet house, it's not the empty street. It's the place where the whole town steps into the cold together and without needing to say it agrees to share the moment. And for me, that is the holiday parade in Coeur d'Alene. And that night has its own soundtrack, its own kind of light, its own way of reminding you that you live in a real community, not just in your own head. And that's the heart behind the song Home for the Christmas Parade. And that's where we're headed next. Okay, well, we just had our holiday parade here in Coeur d'Alene. And if you were there, brr, that was a cold night. You know how cold that night was. It was kind of that sharp kind of cold that finds the gap between your glove and your sleeve. Your fingers go numb really quick. My toes were freezing in my boots. Breath is just kind of hanging in the air. But it's so funny because kids are running around like none of the rules of temperature apply to them. Every year when the parade happens, I go back to the first real Christmas here in North Idaho. We were we hadn't moved to Coeur d'Alene yet. They had offered me the job. They had said, "Bring your family up, come check it out." The town felt unfamiliar in a way that you don't even know where the streets are. You don't even know where to park. Well, it had been a long day. Two of the kids were sick from the drive, and I think they had caught the flu. Kelly stayed back at the hotel with them, and it ended up just me and Jake bundling up and heading out into the night. And I remember standing on Sherman with Jacob. His boots were kind of planted on the icy pavement. He was trying to keep his hands warm while we waited, and people just pressed in on all sides. Parents were lifting kids onto their shoulders. I think I even had Jake on my shoulders for a while. Teenagers were pretending that they were too cool to care, and grown-ups were doing that little foot stomp you do when your toes start to go numb. And then the thing that always gets me, the parade wraps up, the lights are still out, the Christmas lights that they set up. The whole street is just kind of darker than you expect in the middle of town. And then here in North Idaho, somebody starts singing Silent Night. There's no lyrics on a screen, there's no polished choir. It's just voices. Some steady, some shaky, every age mixed into one beautiful sound. And for a minute, Jake and I stood there in that crowd with strangers and we sang along. I remember looking down at him, seeing his face tilt up toward the sky, and hearing him mumble through the parts that he didn't know. And feeling this wave of, okay, this is our home now. This is community. This is where you need to be. And right on that last line, the lights along the street snapped on, trees, storefronts, the whole downtown glowing. And then a second later, fireworks crack open over the lake, color over black water, people cheering, clapping with frozen hands. It felt like the town was saying, "Welcome, you belong here." It was such a magical night. That is the kind of energy that I try to put inside the song, Home for the Christmas Parade. The song isn't necessarily labeled Coeur d'Alene, but my memory of that first parade with Jake is all over it. It opens with a scene that a lot of small towns will recognize. Main Street's lined with red and green, kids on shoulders trying to see, marching bands a half step slow, but nobody cares when the trumpets blow. I love that the band is a little off, half a step slow. That just feels right. No one on the sidewalk is there for technical perfection. Everyone just wants to feel like they are part of something. The next verse keeps that imperfect human thing going. Candy wrappers fly like snow. The high school choir's missing notes. Old Man Clark waves his hat, says, "That's Christmas right there. Imagine that." You can see that whole picture. Kids tearing into candy like they've never seen sugar before. The choir reaching for notes and not quite landing them. And just some older guy on the corner deciding that this exact moment is what Christmas means. I love it. It's not the catalog, it's not the commercial. It's just a messy, noisy street full of people who just showed up. The chorus is where the heart of it lands for me. I'm home for the Christmas parade where lights feel warmer than the day. Every smile's a song we made. Yeah, it's good to be home for the Christmas parade. That line about the lights feeling warmer than the day hits me every time. In North Idaho in December, daylight can feel pretty thin. The parade lights are just bulbs on wires, but they feel warm because you are not standing under them alone. You're surrounded by neighbors, coworkers, total strangers you've seen 100 times at the grocery store without ever saying hello. And there is something healing about that. You spend so much of the year in your own head, convinced that you are carrying everything by yourself. And then you stand on a street in the cold and remember there are thousands of other lives playing out right next to yours. The song keeps mixing that goofiness and depth in the second verse. Hot cocoa steam, mittens stuck. Someone's dog dressed up like a duck. Santa rolls in on a rusted sleigh, still the loudest cheer of the day. Look, you've all seen that dog. You've seen that sleigh. It creaks more than it glides. Nobody cares. Kids lose their minds anyway. Adults cheer just as loud as an excuse to be a kid just for 10 seconds. And then the bridge of the song pulls the whole crowd into one instrument. Flags wave high, brass horns cry, cold hands clap to keep time alive. If joy had a sound, it'd be this crowd shouting that chorus out loud. And that line brings me right back to that first parade with Jake. Legs numb, nose running, heart full. A whole town clapping off beat, shouting along, and creating this big, clumsy choir that somehow sounds exactly right. The last chorus and tag close it out. I'm home for the Christmas parade, the same old street, new memories made. Snowflakes dance on the float brigade. Yeah, it's good to be home for the Christmas parade. Yeah, it's good to be home again. That same old street, new memories made line feels like the core of it. You walk the same sidewalks year after year. The storefronts don't change much. The route is predictable. What changes is you. Your kids get taller. Your kids move away. Your relationships shift. Some people are gone. New people stand where they used to stand. The street stays the same, and it still holds all of it. When I think about this batch of Christmas songs, it makes sense that a parade once snuck in there. We've spent a lot of time in this episode in private spaces, the letter at the table, the porch at night, the room by the fire. The parade is the other half of that story. This is where you step out of your own head and remember that you were part of a bigger thing, a small town, a neighborhood, a city full of people with their own quiet rooms and their own heavy Decembers. And we're all pressed together on one cold night, yelling for Santa on a rusted sleigh. That is community, not the abstract kind, the actual bodies in actual coats kind. For me, that first parade with Jake marked the start of Coeur d'Alene feeling like home. And every year after that, when the lights go down and the first chords of Silent Night float over the street, I feel that same tug in my chest, the one that says, "You are not doing this life alone. Just look around." So we've covered snow and silence, we've covered firelight and safety, we've walked the street with the band and the floats, and there's one more place I want to go in this episode. It's inside the house that you travel back to, the one that holds every version of you all at once. There's old photos on the wall, there's smells that take you straight back 20 years, conversations that slide around the truth without quite landing on it. And that is where songs like Back Home for Christmas and Smelled Like Home live. We're going to step into that house in the next segment. Not the idea of home, the actual house. Now, the home I grew up in was sold recently. And so that has a whole lot of memories there. But I want you to think about the one that raised you, the house that raised you, the one your body remembers before your brain does. And for me, that is a place filled with a lot of love and a lot of really, really good memories. I was very fortunate. I had a great childhood, and I know how rare that is. Look, my childhood was not perfect because no family is, but my childhood was full of warmth, of love. It was full of noise and food and faith and all the things that make a house feel alive. I am very aware that not everybody listening got that. And if you didn't, look, I'm never taking mine for granted. That mix shows up in the song Back Home for Christmas. For me and my family, it's about a 10-hour drive from Coeur d'Alene down to Salt Lake. Um, we've driven that drive so many times, and it's a long drive, but it's also special. And this song here, it starts with that drive, the drive back home. I made the drive through winter roads from pine trees down to salt and snow. See what I did there? I see that stretch of road every time. The heater working, the windshield fogging. We were in some storms where it's like the Star Wars, like light speed thing, like zoom, 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 and you're hypnotized. But in your head, you're already walking through the front door before you even get there. And the older you get, the more you feel both of those things at once. You feel gratitude for what the house gave you. And there's also this awareness that you are different now. Then you land. The house looks smaller every year. Same wreath, same door, same missing chair. Dad's in the kitchen this time around. He doesn't talk much, but he's still proud. The smaller house hits me. When you are a kid, everything feels so big. And then you go back as an adult and you realize how compact it all is. The rooms that held your whole world were actually pretty small, but somehow they still hold all of you when you walk in. That line, missing chair, it holds grief, but it does it inside a context of love. You do not get a painful empty seat without years and years of good things that made that person matter. You feel both. You feel lucky that you had what you had, and so sad that you can't walk in and see them anymore. Dad in the kitchen now, quieter, still proud. That is kind of the evolution that I mean when I say families change. Roles shift, people trade places, but the heart underneath stays familiar. The next verse keeps circling back to that balance. My brother cracks the same old jokes. We laugh too hard, then no one spoke. My sister lights a candle near the sink. That's her way of saying what she thinks. And that feels like a house that has been through real life and still chooses to gather. Deep down, everyone knows how much history sits at that table. Instead of trying to unpack all of it, you let the familiar patterns carry some of the weight. Jokes, candles, little rituals. They're all different ways of saying, I'm glad you're here. And then the chorus pulls it all together. Back home for Christmas. No one says the heavy stuff. We pass the plates and call it love. We carry things we never name, but we show up just the same. Back home for Christmas, even when the spark is gone, we still plug in that old strand and let it glow the way it can. Back home for Christmas still feels like home. For me, that call it love line, it's not cynical, it's literal. Passing the plates was one of the main ways that my family loved each other. My mom, especially. She lived for that holiday kitchen. She made cookies and fudge and caramels and enchiladas like she was feeding the entire planet. That was joy for her, not obligation, not performance, just pure joy. You could see it on her face when pans started to pile up and the house filled with people. That kitchen was the center of everything. Everybody just gathered there. We lost our mom a few years ago. Those memories are still sharp, but in a very good way. Sometimes grief feels heavier because the love was that strong. And I feel lucky that I had that. I know a lot of people never did. So when the song says there's pictures on the hallway wall, mom's smile in every single one. I don't say much, but I see her here and the way we all stay near. I'm not inventing a character in that song. I'm thinking about my actual mom, her smile in old photos, the way her energy still lives in every pan that goes into the oven and every plate that gets sent home with someone who didn't need any more food, but they left with 3 containers anyway. I also know that time moves. Families grow up, people move away. Some chairs stay empty, relationships change shape. So this line in the song rings very true. I don't come back to chase the past, but something good still holds me fast. You are not trying to recreate childhood. You're not pretending that nothing has changed, but you are recognizing that whatever this family is now, whatever shape it has taken, there is still something solid and loving that keeps you coming back through the snow. The last chorus widens that view just a little bit more. Back home for Christmas, we all talk around the truth, but there's love here through and through. We fold the napkins, say a prayer, not sure who we're talking to out there. Back home for Christmas, we show up with what we've got, all the noise, all the knots. But we light the fire, hang the coats, and keep the pieces close. That feels like grown up gratitude to me. You see the knots and the noise clearly. You also see the ways that your people keep choosing each other. Napkins folded, prayer spoken, coats on the same hooks as always, pieces kept as close as they can be. I'll keep driving through the snow, back home for Christmas. That's how I know. You know what matters by where you are still willing to go year after year. And that ties into smelled like home. If back home for Christmas is the wide shot, smelled like home is the close up. It's the kitchen, it's the oven, it's the way that your body reacts before your brain even has time to label it. The song opens up like this: The house was colder than I remembered. You turned the oven on first thing, cinnamon rolls and carols playing. December felt like it used to be. One sound, the switch on the oven. One song, that's all it takes. And then this: you handed me the wooden spoon, said, stir it slow, don't rush the dough. The lights outside were barely glowing, but the kitchen felt like it had a soul. And that could have been my mom talking. Stir it slow, don't rush. She might have been working on enchiladas instead of dough, but the tone is the same: patient, kind of bossy in a loving way. but she's fully alive in that room. The chorus names what those moments feel like. It smelled like home, like Christmas Eve, like something holy you almost believe. Brown sugar, pine, and the sound of you filling the space the way you do. Something holy you almost believe. And that line feels honest. You do not have to have everything figured out to recognize a sacred moment when you're in the middle of one. You just have to feel it in your chest, in your eyes, in the way that you breathe easier for a second. The second verse hits the repeating stories. You told the same old story twice about dad burning the pumpkin pies. We laughed again like we always do, and it felt like time forgave the truth. And that kind of repetition is what I mean when I say I had a good childhood. It was noisy, it was full. Look, people made mistakes. They also laughed about them out loud and turned them into family lore instead of leaving them as quiet shame. And then the last verse brings it back into your present tense life. Now, when I bake on quiet nights, the windows fog, the world feels right. Every smell pulls me back again to that small house and all we've been. For me, that is my kitchen here in Idaho. Windows fogged, something in the oven, a song playing that I probably wrote about all of this. And suddenly, I'm standing in my own house and my childhood home at the exact same time. I feel grateful. I miss my mom. I feel her in the way that I move around that kitchen. All of that can live in one moment. So when I created these songs about home, I'm not dragging my family. I love my family. I had a loving, beautiful, amazing childhood, and I know how rare that is. What I'm trying to do is honor the way that even good families evolve. People age, roles change. Some chairs are empty now, but guess what? New faces show up, and you carry the warmth of old memories into whatever the current version of your family looks like. And if you did not get the kind of childhood that I did, I want these songs to feel like an invitation, not a reminder of what you missed, but maybe your back home is a friend's house or a chosen family, a partner's parents, a place that you built from scratch that feels safe in a way that your original house never did. And that counts. Those smells can be yours then. And those traditions can start with you. All right. Well, we walked through snow and parades and kitchens and hallways in this episode. Underneath all of it, there is a simple thread. You are still here. You're still loving people. You are still being loved in ways that look ordinary from the outside, but end up shaping your whole life. There's one more piece that I want to name before we close. And we talked about it earlier. It's that moment when someone looks at you after a heavy year and sees something lighter in your face. That quiet shift where survival turns into something closer to joy. And that is what the song Joy Looks Good on You is holding, and it's what it's all about. And that's where we're headed in the next segment. Okay, well, we're going to wrap it up here, but we're going to end with this last piece all about this song Joy Looks Good on You. We have walked through a lot together in this episode. Talked about snow on quiet streets, fires in small rooms, a whole town singing under frozen sky, old houses full of pictures and smells and people we miss. Underneath all of that is this one simple thread. You are still here. And we're still trying. You're still here. You've walked through enough winters to know that none of them are the same. Some years feel like a long crawl. You get to December and your only thought is, I made it, but I'm wrecked. You still put the lights up, still show up where you're supposed to be, but inside you feel like you're running on fumes. That's okay. We've all felt that. And like we talked before, then there are years that feel different. They're not easy, but they're just different. You still have stress, you still have grief, You still have questions, but at the same time, there's something in you that has shifted. You laugh a little more often, you breathe a little deeper, and it's like you're less at war with yourself. And the coolest part about it is other people start to see it before you do. And that is the space where the song Joy Looks Good on You lives. In my head, kind of like we talked about in the introduction, the whole song happens in a doorway. It's the end of a long year. It's a regular night. There's nothing staged. The door opens and there's this cold air that follows someone in. There's a little snow on their coat and their cheeks are red and they just have that smile on their face. It's like they're laughing at something that happened earlier in the day. And you look up and you see them. It's the same person, but it's just a different light. And that's the first verse. You walked in with snow on your coat, laughing hard at something you wrote. The kind of grin that fills a room. Yeah, joy looks good on you. I love how simple that is. No one is making a speech, no one explaining the arc of their healing journey. They are just standing there holding a small piece of joy in their hands like it belongs to them again. And it's so cool when you see it. This is where all the other songs in this episode start to braid together. The letters that you used to write as a kid and still write in some form as an adult. The late night snow that makes the world feel softer for just 10 minutes. The room by the fireplace that finally lets your shoulders drop. The parade where the whole town claps off beat and calls it good. The kitchen where your mom once made enough food for 3 neighborhoods and smiled through all of it. Joy grows in those places, quietly. It does not erase the hard things, but it sits beside them. And that is why the chorus talks about joy in a very ordinary way. Joy looks good on you, the kind that doesn't need a cue. Christmas lights in your eyes, warm as winter passing by. Joy looks good on you, more than you ever knew. The kind that doesn't need a cue might be my favorite line in the whole song. There's a version of joy that feels forced. You turn it on for photos, right? You perform it at work functions. You drag it into the room because you feel like you're supposed to. This song is after a different kind of joy. It's about the joy that sneaks up on you. It's the moment that you realize that you're laughing at something dumb in the kitchen and your whole body is actually in it. It's the drive home where you are singing along to one of Mike Baker's beautiful new songs. And somewhere in the middle of the second chorus, you notice, I do not feel as heavy as I did 3 months ago. It could be someone else's song too, but hey, it's my podcast, so we get to talk about my song. You can miss those shifts if you're not careful. You're used to tracking pain, and you are great at keeping an inventory of everything that is hard. But you do not always take the same notes on the moments that feel okay. That is part of why I wrote this. To hold up a mirror and say, look, something in you softened. You might not have seen it yet, but I have. The bridge says it out loud. Some years break you down a bit. This one gave a little bit. I see it now, the change in you, a softer heart, a clearer view. I like that it says a bit. There are years that just wreck you, and there are years that demand more than you knew you had. There are also years where the shift is smaller and still real, a bit, enough that the year feels different in your body. A softer heart, not naive, but open, a clearer view, less fog, more honesty. And that is the kind of growth that I care about. You can hold grief and joy in the same chest now without feeling like you're betraying either one. You can stand in a kitchen that smells like your childhood and let yourself miss your mom and feel grateful and laugh with your kids all in the same 10 minutes. Here's what I hope for you when you hear this song. Maybe you picture someone you love who has been through a rough run and is finally starting to look more alive again. The friend who came back from a hard diagnosis or a breakup or a long, depressing stretch of life and now smiles in a way that you have not seen in years. You listen to the song and think, yeah, that is them. Joy really does look good on them. Or maybe, quietly, that's what I really hope, is that you realize that the song fits you too. Maybe this year was still messy, but you notice that you're less numb than you were. You are more honest in your relationships. You're gentler with yourself. You see your own face in the reflection of a window with the tree behind, and you think, I look tired, but I also look like I am still here. And there's something kind in my own eyes that I have not seen in a while. If you have not felt that yet, I'm not here to talk you into it. Some of you are very much in one of those break you down years. Your win is that you are still breathing. And guess what? That counts. So please hear that. Keep breathing, keep trying. But even then, I want this song to be there waiting for you when you're ready. Kind of the way that a chair waits for someone who has been standing too long. At some point, your nervous system will loosen its grip, a laugh is going to escape, a day will land just a little softer. And when that happens, I want a little voice in your head to say, right there, that's what he meant. Joy does not erase your history, it sits inside it. Joy does not mean that everything is fine. It just means that something in you is still willing to respond to goodness when it walks in the room. And that is what joy looks good on you is trying to bless. The decision to stay open, the courage to keep loving people, the fact that you are still here after everything and somehow your heart is softer, not harder. When I think about my own life this year, the leadership and the art and the music and my family, there were plenty of days that felt like too much. There were also these tiny flashes where things lined up for a second. A song landed, a patient felt seen, a piece of art connected. My kids laughed in the same room. Kelly smiled across the house, and it hit me how lucky I am. Those are the moments that made this song possible. Those are the moments that I want you to recognize in your own story. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to stop talking in a minute and let the song do its job. As you listen, think about the people and places that we touched in this episode: the porch, the parade, the old house, the kitchen, the letters, the rooms that kept you going. Then, somewhere in all of that, let this line land on you too. Joy looks good on you more than you know. Well, if you're still with me, you walked through a whole winter with this episode. We started in the quiet, we moved through the letters and late night snow. We stood in a crowd downtown, we stepped back into kitchens and old houses. We ended in a doorway where joy finally showed up on someone's face. And I want to land in this simple place. If you are listening in your car, in your kitchen, on a walk, or hiding in a bedroom for just a few moments of peace, I hope you feel less alone in whatever version of December you are living. I hope you feel loved. I love you. I'm so proud of you. And the world needs you to be here to, to keep fighting, to keep trying. Some of you are having a great year, and some of you are hanging on. And most of us are somewhere in between, depending on the day. But you are still here, and that matters. Every song we talked about came out of real days in my life. real gratitude, real grief, real doubt, real laughter. Nothing scripted, just me trying to pay attention. If you grew up with warmth and food and people who cared, let yourself feel thankful for that. Remember the good stuff. Let it wrap around you when the room feels different now. And if you did not get that, I hope that these songs give you at least a small taste of the safety and love that you should have had. When you think about those letters to the North Pole, remember you are allowed to keep sending the honest stuff somewhere. A note on your phone, a prayer, a message to a friend. Wanting to be heard is not childish. When you step out into the cold this month, I hope you get at least one night where the world is quiet enough that you can hear yourself again. When you sit by a fire or a lamp or even the glow of a TV in a dark room, I hope there's at least one person who knows your story and chooses to stay close. When your community gathers in any form, I hope you feel that sense of these are my people. Not perfect people, but real ones. And when you walk into any house that feels like home, I hope the good memories rise first. The smell of what someone cooked, the way they moved in the kitchen, the sound of old jokes that still land, the feeling of being held by people who knew you when you were small and kept choosing you. My hope for you this December is not nonstop cheer, while that would be lovely. My hope is that you notice the small shifts, the moments where you feel lighter than you did. You catch yourself laughing. You see your reflection and think, I've been through a lot, but I am still open. Joy suits you, even if it feels new or fragile. You carry it in a way that no one else does, and that is worth saying out loud. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for letting these songs into your life, for listening to this show. Every time you hit play, share an episode, send a message, or sit with me on a hard day, I feel that and I am grateful. I am Mike Baker. This is Still Here, Still Trying. Wherever you are listening from, I'm proud of you for making it to another December. Okay, well, thanks for being here with me this week. And like always, I want to close with a song. We talked about it at the end of the episode. I'm going to send you out today with Joy Looks Good on You. As you listen, remember, think about someone who has been through a heavy stretch and is starting to glow again. Let their face sit in your mind for the length of the song. If that person is you, let the song tell you the truth. Joy looks good on you more than you know. Enjoy.
You walked in with snow on your coat, laughing hard at something you wrote. The kind of grin that fills a room. Yeah, joy looks good on you. You lit a candle by the tree, said this year's fine by me. Simple days and something true. Yeah, joy looks good on you. Joy looks good on you, the kind that doesn't need a cue. Christmas lights in your eyes, warm as winter passing by. Joy looks good on you, more than you ever knew. We played that record you love most. You danced around, raised your toast. Everything felt bright and new. Yeah, joy looks good on you. Joy looks good on you, the kind that doesn't need a cue. Christmas lights in your eyes, warm as winter passing by. Joy looks good on you, more than you ever knew. Some years break you down a bit, this one gave a little lift. I see it now, the change in you, a softer heart, a clearer view. on you, the kind that doesn't need a cue. Christmas lights in your eyes, warm as winter passing by. Joy